this meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, it being Tuesday, January 24th at 6:30. I'm Linda Bacon, Chair. With me, I have Councilor GIVNER, Councilor MALDONADO VELEZ, Councilor Rivera, and on Zoom, I have Councilor Jourdain. So we have all members of the committee present. And I see members of the planning board, and we're just going to take up one order, which will be quickly dealt with, and then we'll go right to you, okay, folks?
Cool. Before we do that, can we take a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to suspend the rules, remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items together, or open a public hearing unless there is an objection?
So forth.
Is that a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Givner?
Aye.
Jose?
Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain? This is yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now we can do regular business, but if we do have a formal vote, it'd be right by roll call anyway. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to take up item 1 and open the public hearing.
Motion to take up item 1 and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So item 1 is a special permit application for Small Wonders LLC at 109 Lyman Street for a marijuana manufacturing establishment. It was continued from 12/13. They're waiting for their provisional license, and we've had no update at this time. So I would like to entertain a motion to continue this to February 28th at 6:30.
Motion to continue to February 28th at 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So for the continuance, I think we need to do roll call. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this public hearing has been continued. And I'd like to welcome the planning board. It looks like everybody's on Zoom.
Everyone is indeed on Zoom. And
And yes, hello, Madam Chair Bacon and Planning Board Chair Panich. Yes, hello.
Hello.
hang on just a sec. I was waiting in case ordinance wanted to go first, but at this point, I would entertain a motion to reopen our public hearing on the proposal to create an ordinance governing battery storage facilities for the city of Holyoke. This is joint hearing with the city council.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And
All in favor?
And then I'll motion for the council to open
By
the
roll
public
call
hearing as
vote,
well.
Rosanna,
Oh, go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am.
My bad.
Nathan,
yes,
Kate, yes, and Mimi.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I motion to open the public hearing for the council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we are in the public hearing for the city council to add a section for battery storage facilities to the zoning ordinance to reflect technology advancements and future needs for such installations. New facilities will be reviewed through Section 10 Major Site Plan Review. And this is a joint hearing that was continued from 12/13. So, do we have anybody here who wants to provide some background information on the battery storage? Because right now, we're in the information gathering phase. I guess there has been some language that planning has that maybe can be shared tonight?
Well, just on background, if I may. We received a proposal from HG&E, which has formed the basis for us to start to do research about this. I believe that the Ordinance Committee did receive the same language, but what we found as we worked on this is that this is just a fascinating topic technologically and really interesting, but there is enough complexity to it that rather than being able to do a simple markup of the language that HG&E sent, we think that this presents a lot of fairly complicated questions that we need to both understand and think through how we want to handle as the city moves forward with this. And Nathan Chung, one of our members, has spent the bulk of the time actually working with HG&E about this, and is probably in the best position to talk about some of those issues. But the bottom line is going to be that we're still really gathering information, and we are thinking about issues involving how the city should permit these and the various forms of battery storage facilities that we might be presented with, because there are a lot of them that are very different from one another. And you know, we think that it will take at least until the next joint meeting for us to have anything more specific for you. But
Okay.
that said, Nathan, if you want to take it away.
Yes, thank you. So, you know, I had a conversation with HNE and Jeff Burkett, our planning board staff, and I also looked at some reference materials Jeff found, such as the city of Montague, who's already who's already working on this issue. So I can share with some details, but I won't go too much into it, about some of the ideas and challenges. So the Holyoke HE&E, one of their main idea was sort of a split the approval process, however it happens, whether special permit or site plan review. They wanted to split the classification of the battery storage units into sort of two categories. One that's 1,000 kilowatt hours of capacity or less, and one that is greater than the capacity. And so the one with the higher capacity would have some higher requirements and more specific requirements. And you know, a couple factors that if this gets implemented in different zones, residential, commercial, couple of the main factors about these units that will really affect potentially the I guess quality of life for the residents is like the fire risk. Let me see, where is that? Yeah, so fire risk, the footprint of the units, how they appear, they look like sheds mostly. The off-gassing that may occur, and the noise issue. So they do generate a humming sound, which I don't know exactly how loud it can be, but it is a potential risk factor to consider. And unfortunately, right now, there isn't really like a standardized state guidance for these systems. So there isn't really like a good baseline for cities to work on. And yeah, I have some more details, but does anybody have any questions or some points they want to raise?
Well, the only thing that I would offer now is I did speak with Jim Lavelle, you know, about this whole initiative, and he did send us the brief summary letter that we all have, talking about looking forward and storing for high demand times. But the main takeaway that I got from him is similar to what you're saying, that it's early days, there's a lot of developments going on, and we should probably move slowly on it and see what developments are happening in the field before we move too quickly to locking ourselves into a definite plan. So it seems like everybody's thinking about it in the same way. We want to be on, I think, the leading edge, but we don't necessarily want to be the cutting edge, right? So that's all I have to add, because we all have this letter on our, yeah. For our next meeting, I don't know if anybody was planning to be here from HG&E, or are they thinking more to come later in the spring when there's more information? I'm not sure if anybody in planning has a timeline.
Yeah, no, I had the impression that they would be happy to work with us at, you know, whatever point we feel that we're caught up enough to need more information.
Okay.
Obviously, they want to make this happen. We want to make it happen. It's a great technology, and you know, we just want to get it right. But I think our last contact with them was they're going to review this meeting, and they'll be available to meet with us and answer our questions pretty much anytime we ask them. So probably, you know, what we were thinking is that likely the best thing to do is to continue this public hearing out a ways, develop more information, send what we have to you as we have it, and then, reconvene,
Okay.
and I'm not sure whether you want to do like 6 weeks, 2 months. I understand that you're only meeting once a month at this point.
Well, we have
But-
been, if we've needed to meet more often and people are available, we do,
Yeah, but- Yeah, but there is no great rush on this, so whatever is convenient for ordinance, I would think.
Well, what do folks think? Do you think you want to go out to April on it? Since, it's really early days in terms of this. I think there's only one other city that even has an ordinance.
I guess for me, it's just having a better understanding. I get we're trying to get the battery storage facilities and everything, but what is the ask from ordinance? I mean, what's the plan, I guess, right? If I would prefer for us to have some sort of plan, and I guess Mimi hit it on the head with what she was saying with trying to push it out so that way we have more of an understanding of what.
So we have more to look at.
Right.
Yeah.
Because for me, I get what's being asked.
Right.
But it's like
The how.
there's so many different things that if we vote on something or we move forward with something, there are so many other things that we could be missing right now.
Exactly.
Just because there's not enough
Yeah.
for me to actually even.
No, I think we all
Yeah.
agree on that.
So yeah, I guess that
So
makes
you think
sense. That makes
April
sense to
then,
push-
maybe?
Even.
Well-
Yeah.
Is it just a question
Council
of,
Givner, yeah?
is it just a question of changing the ordinance?
It's writing
For the
a
type.
new one,
Okay.
yeah.
But the thing is, if we change the ordinance a certain way, then it
Yeah.
could allow for certain things to happen that we didn't expect.
All right, April then.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm looking at the calendar and we stay with what we've been doing, it would be April 25th? Does that look reasonable for everybody?
Sure.
So we're looking at April 25th, if that works for planning?
Yeah, I think that should work for us.
Okay.
Jeff, Sharon, any objections?
No objection.
Okay.
Okay, then I'd like to entertain a motion that we continue this to April 25th at 6:30.
Are we also trying to invite HGNE to that meeting?
I think we would like to invite a representative from HG&E just to give us whatever background information
Okay.
they are
But
looking at. Yeah,
if I may, Madam Chair, just
Councilor Rivera.
just to not waste their time, because I think they came up to one of the last meetings too, and they talked about it briefly. If I'm
right,
correct. So like, make sure that if we're inviting them in, that we're actually inviting them in to add. They're going to obviously add value, but like to help us build. You know what I mean?
Right, so if I'm hearing everybody accurately, what we'd be hoping to have for the April meeting would be some kind of a rough document to look at and talk about, say, the small versus the large.
Right.
And what is reasonable and what does 1,000 kilowatts mean?
Right.
And how big is that? Because it means nothing to me in terms of how big would the building be and stuff like that. And so that if we're able to have enough information to actually have a discussion about the good and the bad and the where and the how much, then I think it would be helpful to ask them to come in too. So we'll defer to planning, and if we get communication between now and then that we should go out to May, given developments or more time being needed, we could always be flexible that way too. Right?
And I see Jeff Burkott's hand up, so,
Okay.
I just wanted to throw this out to you, Madam Chair, is that should the planning board meet, or, should we, instead of continuing it right out to April for the planning board, do you want to have additional meeting February 28th or sometime in between that time where the board can hash out a draft or work on something?
That's them.
well, I think we need the public hearing for information gathering purposes. I think we have a committee already assembled, and perhaps we'll want to do something about the membership of that if there are other people who want to be involved in this. but we already have some provision for gathering, for discussing with HG&E. And I would, well, it's a good question. And as I think about this, I hate to break up our coordination with the Ordinance Committee, but you make sense. Let's put on a intermediate public hearing where we could discuss this. And if necessary, we can ask HG&E to come talk to us about it. And then we will rejoin ordinance, whatever happens in April. If that works for you, Madam Chair?
That's fine with me. I mean, it'll all be on the public record, so,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I have a question for Chair Panich about that. Chair Panich referring to that intermediate meeting, is that a meeting just with the planning board or is it another joint meeting like this one?
Now, this is our public hearing, which we will continue to that intermediate date, and then we will continue it again to rejoin the joint hearing with the Ordinance Committee.
Great, thank you. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do we want to?
we're
pick a
doing two
time?
separate things then. So we're continuing to April 25th.
Yes, and I should let you move ahead with that while we figure out a date that we're continuing to.
Okay, great.
So I'll motion to continue to
April 25th.
April 25th,
at 6:30.
6:30.
All in favor? I
Aye.
guess we have to
Aye.
do roll call. GIVNER?
Yes.
MALDONADO VELEZ?
Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain?
Yes.
Thank you. So that's 5 yes, so we're continued on the battery storage until April 25th at 6:30, where we hope we'll have a little more to look at in terms of what things might be envisioned for different zones. Okay.
We certainly hope that we'll have something to show you. So Jeff, you're looking at the schedule and I'm not. Do you have a sense of what we should continue to?
Well, knowing today's, let's see, January 24th, we could, well, we've got availability February 28th, March 14th, and March 28th. How about March 28th?
Do we want to?
That work for everybody? Okay, then
So folks, just bear with me don't take your vote yet. I need a motion to reconsider because I see members of the public. And
Motion.
we are in a public hearing.
So motion to reconsider our last vote
Yeah, and keep the public
and keep the
hearing
public
open
hearing open
for public comment.
for public comment.
Thanks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, members of the public, I see you here, and I did not invite you to speak relative to the battery storage. And I do also want to offer that we do have a correspondence from HG&E relative to the energy storage, if you'd like to have a copy of it. Okay? All right. Here. So do you wish to make any comments in the public record, in the public hearing tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay,
But I would like to see a comment.
okay,
I was here for the information, and then this is perfect.
okay, great. So let the record show that they've been provided with the letter from HG&E relative to the battery storage. All right, well, thank you very much, committee. I apologize. Now we can do our motion over again.
Motion to continue the meeting until April 25th, April 25th, 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Counselor GIVNER?
Yes.
Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Planning Board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the record, I will also ask whether there's any member of the public present who would like to comment on this public hearing. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing with the Planning Board to, what was that date? March
28th.
March 28th at 5:30 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Mimi.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, and we will see you, Ordinance Committee, in a couple of months.
Okay, thank you.
And planning board back at the meeting.
Yes.
Good night. Okay, now, I'm looking to see. So now we're on to Evergreen.
Motion to entertain item 3
Second.
Second. And open the public hearing.
and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So for public hearing, I think under this suspension, we're okay, right?
Yes,
Okay.
because that was the motion.
Okay, great. So item 3 is a public hearing for Evergreen Industries LLC at 1 Cabot Street to operate a marijuana cultivation establishment. Is somebody here for Evergreen? Perfect timing. You can come in and make sure if you put the microphone on that you see a green light. And when you speak into it, just have it close enough to, sometimes people complain they can't hear us.
You don't like the strawberries? Those are like my favorite.
Okay. So, welcome. And we have your application before us, but what I usually like to do is just give you the floor to run through your application. And if there were any things that you were going back and forth on and provided an update on, just to make sure we're on the same page on that. And whoever wishes to take the floor, just give us your name and address, and then we'll ask any questions.
Thank you so much. My name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm legal counsel for Evergreen Industries. I'm just going to introduce the people that are sitting here on behalf of Evergreen. Starting all the way at the end is Mike Schweitzer, who's here with Schweitzer Construction, and he'll be discussing the floor plan and site plan
Okay.
for the site. Ezra Parzabak, who is the consultant on the
We've met
project. I'm
before.
sure you're very familiar with him. Again, my name is Isaac Fleischer, legal counsel, and to my left is Bridget Ryan, who is the general manager and owner of Evergreen Industries.
Okay, great.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate your time. Again, my name is Bridie Ryan, and I'm the owner of Evergreen Industries. And I'm working with my husband, David Carpenter. He's our general manager of operations. Just to give an overview about us, like many people that grew up around here, both my husband and I worked on a lot of farms and orchards in the area, and we enjoyed the work, but as we completed our degrees, we moved on from farming. I've been a nurse for over 10 years, and Dave has owned his own electrical business for longer than that, but we still love to garden, and we're skilled cannabis growers. As this section opened up in the state, we began to organize ourselves so that we could find a way that we could build a facility and get licensed. We plan to use traditional grow methods with an energy-conscious approach. We chose Holyoke because of the city's green electricity and your availability of industrial spaces. We actually lived in Holyoke for years. When we were first starting out, I started pursuing my nursing degree at HCC, and we're excited to be returning to the city and becoming supportive members of the Holyoke community.
Thank you. Will you need to share a screen to do your presentation, or?
Hi, yes, Ezra Parzabak. We do plan to share a screen, and I think what I'm going to do is share mine. Mike who's the builder and has worked on the site plan at One Cabot, will kind of walk through that. And Isaac and I can answer any questions as we go along.
Okay.
Is that something good with you, Mike? Okay.
Hopefully you can do that now.
I think, yes,
Okay.
I'm ready to share screen. Here we go.
I just want to make sure you had the capability from us, yeah.
I think so.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Okay. So,
Now, this is the shared space, right? Because there's 1, 2, or 3.
That's
Or
right.
is there 4 now? 4?
yeah, what I'll do is just introduce. So you'll be familiar with the whole site because Blossom Flower, Damaris Aponte, is in
For
the
the
same
delivery.
location. Evergreen Industries is a tenant in this building as well, so they have the identical site plan. And then actually after us, Infused Elements is also in this building with the identical site plan.
Oh, well,
So-
that was easy.
yeah, you'll have some knowledge of it. So I'm zoomed in. Mike, do you want to start with the with what I'm showing here on the outside of the building?
Yeah, sure.
So, here I'll zoom out. As you can see, this is Cabot Street here. So you enter the building or enter the parking area on this side. And we're first going to just address this area up here. So I'm going to zoom in so that we can just see where the salad part is, which then shows the entrance. And then I have this screen, which is once you've entered the building here, their site is this long rectangle here, not the future tenant.
Okay.
So, Mike, if you want to just talk about Sallyport.
Yep.
And
So the Sallyport, we are installing one new chain link fence Sallyport with locking sliding gate. That Sallyport will be used for the 8 planned tenants on floor 2, including Infused Element. The plan is to add 40 new parking spaces with the new site improvement. The code allows 4 employees per 1 parking space. So for the total One Cabot, we're allotted 160 employees as the plan sits right now. Now there's a lot in flux with the tenants and who will be occupying what. I know you guys have been looking for the master site plan and the parking plan.
Right, because every added thing creates another question.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's one thing that the site engineer, Tom Casano, the landlord, and I are working on, finalizing who will get what tenant spaces, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible. But as it sits right now, like I said, we have 40 spots, which allows us 160 employees.
And how many would you anticipate, if you don't mind me interjecting every once in a while
Absolutely.
with a question, and how many would you anticipate having for this project?
Bertie, Dave? 4 to 6.
And the 40 parking spaces are connected to your project at the moment?
So
This project?
this is the
No.
this is the planned site improvement for when the tenants move in. So this will be built by the time all the tenants move in with the Sallyport and all of that.
By the property owner?
Yes, yep. And
Okay.
Tom, I'm doing Damaris's as well. I'm doing pretty much all One Cabot Infused Elements behind us. Actually,
Okay.
I'm working with Tom hand in hand, so I should be able to answer any questions you have about.
But the parking will go with the property owner who will
Correct.
allocate it out
Absolutely.
to the tenants?
Absolutely, yep.
And so at the point that it's constructed, then there would be some sort of an addendum?
Yeah,
to the lease or
we're
something?
we're actually hoping to finalize this master parking plan in a couple of weeks. So the building owner and I will come in and submit all this stuff when it's final in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I'm trying to stay within the conversation for this permit, but everything's overlapping, so we just want to make sure at the end of the day, if there's 4 or 5 or 6 different permits in there, that there will be adequate parking for
Just to put the
activity.
parking in context, they're expecting, Evergreen Industries is expecting to have a maximum of about 4 employees at a time. Right now, I don't think it's specified in the lease, but on the site plan, there's 4 spaces that have been allocated to them.
Okay.
They're not going to be those exact spaces,
Yeah.
but the idea is that they'll have 4 spaces out of.
And just to put that into perspective, we have 10 businesses, including Milltown, that exist, and Damaris's.
Okay.
None of them are bigger than Dave Carpenter's, and that allows, with the 10 businesses, 160 employees, that's 16 employees per business as we have it planned right now, so.
And that's kind of how it's playing out.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Yep, and like I said, the biggest space is actually Dave Carpenter's, which is 9,000 square feet, so we can expect the same employee load from the other spaces.
Okay, and that's the electrical?
Yep.
That business?
Say that again?
Is that the electrical business?
Yep.
Okay.
Evergreen Industries, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm
just,
I
sorry.
tend to use a lot of first names because I'm on a first name basis
Yeah,
with
and
Evergreen.
I'm like going for the,
Sorry about that, yeah.
all right, no, that's fine. All right,
Yep, and that's kind of the rough idea right
Okay.
now for Dave's spots, but we're still working on finalizing that.
Yeah, and for reference, this orange box was up in this area for Blossom Flower. So the way parking is being allocated is in the case of Blossom Flower and Evergreen, they're getting about 3 or 4 spots. So these spots here are allocated Blossom Flower. These are allocated Evergreen. I'm not sure about Infused Elements, but that's basically the pattern as they each take their allotted spots.
and from a prior public hearing, if I'm remembering correctly, this is a good location for public transport and even some walkability.
That's
for
right.
some people.
Absolutely,
From my-
yeah, yep.
Yeah,
And if need be, we'll incorporate that into the future businesses, yep.
okay, thank you.
I guess.
Council Rivera?
Yeah, I guess for me, I mean, the more, it's not clear with regards to the parking for me, right? We have it mapped out and we expect it to be that, but like I would actually like to see how it's gonna look and have it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the files that Ezra doesn't have, we have the whole 8 spaces on floor 2, tenant 1 through 8, and the idea is to allocate spaces for tenants 1 through 8. And like I said, we'll get that to you in a couple of weeks when we finalize that. The Tom Casano and I will come in and submit all that.
Yeah, it would be good to be able to speak to the building owner because there's a lot of things happening in that one building.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unfortunately, they're not getting their fair shake with regards to a public hearing because there's so many things happening with regards to that building. And we're supposed to be addressing most of what is going on with Miss Birdie here, right? But a lot of other things are convoluting it because we haven't had the chance to actually address a lot of the issues that have come up with regards to all the other ones. So it'd be great to be able to get a lot of that out the way so that way when we have the other people that are going to move into the buildings to do their public hearings, they can get their fair shake and just we speak mostly about their stuff versus all the questions we have about the whole building overall. And I'm sorry that this is happening.
So I'll schedule that. I'll talk to Tom tomorrow and we'll get that scheduled to ASAP.
And I just, from the legal perspective, I just want to make sure that we're distinguishing between what's happening in this building as a whole versus the specific special permit that we're discussing tonight.
Right, because the parking in and of itself wouldn't come before us.
Right.
So should we pull up this floor plan?
Yep. But I think I will be back here at least once more with other applicants, and as the building fills up, we'll come with more comprehensive plans. But at this point, if we had them, we'd bring them, but the building's not near it's not near fill yet.
Let me know what you want to.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. So that's the floor plan. Dave's gonna have one big flower room to the north there, a veg room, dry cure to the left of the flower, and his vault on the left. Office down below, security IT with secure servers behind the door, down in the bottom left-hand corner per CCC regs. He will have about 3,500 square feet of flower canopy and about 1,000 of veg. Any questions?
I think
Councilor Rivera?
for me is the staff. It's going to be only 4 staff members. If we if we could try to hire people from Holyoke, that would be great. I'm going to always push for that as much as I can. Then the other piece is, are the rooms, how will the rooms be separated? Just by like drywall, or will it be like, because if you go up, you could see the other spaces where the other people are renting. It looks kind of like it's going to be open, and you can not obviously see their space, but it's like.
So if you want to zoom out a little bit, Ezra.
And they're sharing the bathrooms, right? Everybody.
Correct. Yep.
That's right. Bathrooms are here.
Like, yeah.
This whole hallway is shared hallway, and this long rectangle is a tenant space.
Okay.
And separate tenant.
But those other marks are a wall?
Yes, this encloses this whole space, and they are beams, and I believe it's actually brick.
Those thin lines indicate a regular standard steel framed wall. Okay. The thick existing lines those are masonry walls that are existing. All the thin lines are new framed walls.
Okay. Are you all set, Councilor?
Yes.
For now? Okay.
Yep.
And just so it's clear, product will be grown here. As you can see, veg, flower, processing, drying, etc. in here, vault, and then exiting the building
through that secure sally port.
Yep.
Up there.
So I'll zoom out. So here's the loading dock, and the sally port outside is right here. So basically, other than, it's true, the master plan, and every time I'm bringing a client through a special permit in many of these buildings where there are multiple tenants, the planning board does relay the ordinance committee's desire and city council's desire to have a master plan. What's challenging is when a specific client is applying for special permit, that is not a finding. That is a landlord-related issue. So that is something that you're right. It should be cemented in somehow because there's a disconnect between it, and that's why we're working on it to try and make sure all the parking's there. But it's hard to.
And I'll get Tom Casano in here. We'll get together.
Yep.
Yeah, and to sort of tag on Councilor Rivera, if there's a building that has the potential capacity for X employees, then the parking would be driven by the potential capacity.
That's right.
Right?
That's
and
right.
so then that could just be the baseline. And then after that, if there was going to be more, then somebody'd have to come up with the more, right?
Right.
But
But-
right now, it's a little puffy.
but it also depends on the type of business, because
Right.
a lot of them
Well, they
are
have-
just like cultivation, so it's fine. But if you have people that are going in to shop, then it changes, because now you
Right.
got people coming in and out to
Well,
use
and the
other
regs
parking
change.
spaces. Right, that's true.
Yeah, so.
For the public, yeah, you have to accommodate more parking for the public. Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but so if I can just give a brief, loose or draft of a master plan is the way each tenant in this building is chronologically moving through the special permit is, so far, they're all non-public businesses. So they do have a discrete number of parking spaces.
And we can see them,
And they're all fitting.
so.
What will most likely happen is if the retail, which is a possibility in that space, there is a provisional license for retail in that building. If that retail does require parking and it surpasses the maximum number of spaces, they will have to present that they're going beyond outside of I believe there's extra parking across the street. Is that correct, Mike?
Not at this point.
Not
Not
yet.
at this point.
Right, but for this
be determined.
purpose, you're saying the 4 to 6, and is that for the 24-hour period, or is that per 8-hour period? So there's actually going to be 16,
That is
or 12?
24-hour period.
That is,
Yeah.
okay, so then,
Yeah.
that's, all right. Thanks.
And also the nice aspect of manufacturing and cultivation is that they are sort of around the clock. So
Right.
many people will be,
Right.
over
tagged.
a 24-hour period. Yeah. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Anything else, Isaac?
Members of the committee, you've had a chance to look over the notes and the reports from the other departments and the findings. So do you have any remaining questions for the applicant with any of the departments that have reported out to us?
I'll just reiterate about just trying to hire Holyoke employees. That's it.
Well, and
As much as you can. That's all I can say for me. And thank you for coming to bring your business to Holyoke.
And we do have the security approval from the police department. And we have the letter of January 10th from planning. And I don't see that there was anything outstanding on that. It seemed like everything had been asked and answered in that regard.
That's correct. That's
Oh, okay.
correct, Isaac.
And then the last letter that we have, which is what we've already been talking about, the parking.
Yep.
And of course, our engineer always says that if things will be changed, of course, then different permits have to be sought. But I think that's pretty standard anyway for any project, right? So, and that was the January 18th letter. So are you folks all good with everything that was in the letter from the engineer on
Yes.
the 18th?
Yes, yep. And we'll get that engineer analysis about the stormwater, roof drains and separation.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right, and then I know your consultant is familiar with our standard conditions that we put on each special permit just to try to be consistent throughout, but I will read them into the record. And we now have 8 of them. And one is that the owner of the building always pays commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit, that the business retains a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs, that the hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police and are a retired member of another police department that now lives in the city of Holyoke, that there shall be, number 4, there shall be no marijuana consumption allowed on site. 5, that the hours of operation be set according to city ordinances. 6, that the applicant must abide by Massachusetts general laws and guidances from the Cannabis Control Commission. And 7, that the petitioner applicant shall conform with city and state health laws, rules, and regulations, including odor nuisance controls for the duration of the permit. And 8, that if substantial progress has not occurred within 2 years of issuance of the special permit, an extension shall be required. And that's upon request of the applicant, right? And so you folks are in agreement with those
Yes.
conditions?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Yes, yes. And I just want to touch on, if you could go over with us the aspect of your application that does speak to the odor control relative to the cultivation.
Yeah, so the odor control, we're gonna have a closed heat pump system, air source heat pumps. We will have, in the case of elevated CO2 levels, it requires exhaust, and that exhaust will have a carbon filter and also an ozone machine hooked up to it. So in the case that we do have to exhaust anything, it will be the smell will be completely mitigated.
So would you say at this point that that is kind of as good as you can get with it? Because I know, you know,
absolutely.
the whole issue of odors has become, a bigger issue over time in the communities that started way before we did too, in other states, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has, the technology is, since, the early stages, it's come a decent ways, and these are the top of the line systems, absolutely, yep.
Okay, all right.
We're actually using a specialized team from Colorado.
Okay.
Designs, does cannabis HVAC and all that, yep.
Okay, great, thank you. If there is any member of the public here in the chambers or on Zoom that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition of this special permit, please make yourself known and make any comments you'd like in the public record. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing anybody come up to the microphone. So I will determine that we do not have any public comments at this time. Thank you for the reminder, though. Never hurts.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Counselor GIVNER?
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain?
Yes.
Thank you. So this public hearing is now closed, and you were able to show us on the site plan the parking for this particular application, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Motion approve the special permit for Evergreen Industries.
Second.
all in favor? Counselor GIVNER?
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon? Yes. Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Jourdain?
You have all the conditions on there, right? with the
I read them
approval?
into the record, yes.
No, I listened. I just wanted to make sure it was
Motion.
part of the motion, that's all.
I'm sorry?
Part of the motion.
Just making sure that the addition of the 7 conditions was part of the motion.
Yeah, so when I made motion that we approve the special permit for Evergreen Industries with the 8 standard conditions that were read into the record.
Okay, so.
Second.
Thank you, that was a good point. So Counselor GIVNER?
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon, yes. Counselor Rivera?
C.
Counselor Jourdain?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this will be recommended to the city council at the next city council meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in February. All right?
Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck. So I got my little sheet. I sh-
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm,
Oh, they'll trade seats.
Yeah. Can we open it up?
yeah.
We can.
Motion to take up.
Well, but we didn't. Okay. All right.
So, motion to take up item 4 and open the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item 4 is a public hearing for Infused Element LLC at 1 Cabot Street for a marijuana manufacturing establishment. Okay. So welcome. And we will give you the floor to go through your application with us, and if you can highlight any updates. I think we did get an update on yours. Was it yours or the other one? Anyway, sometimes there's one letter and then there's an update. There you go. Yeah, so if you can just go over those, it just helps us. Yep, thanks.
Good evening. I'm attorney Toby Wilson, and I represent Infused Element. I'd like to put out that not only are these two guys, well,
Microphone.
Ezra lives in Holyoke.
Oh, your microphone. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Nobody asked me to be attorney Thomas Toby Wilson, and I'm going to point out for Council Rivera that not only is Ezra Blue live in Holyoke, and Isaiah's in Holyoke, and their legal counsel's in Holyoke. So we're getting employed.
Trifecta.
And our head of security as well.
And head of security too as well. So this is different than some of the other ones. This is Infused Elements, where they buy flour and make them into edibles. There is no real odor. There is no I can't think of the word. Distilling. They don't manufacture. They manufacture their product, and the flour comes in, and they buy the flour wholesale. They're more of a wholesaler than they are a retailer. They're not even they are a wholesale company. They're not public. People don't come in to purchase them. The parking issue, there's only 4 people. They do have sales staff, but they all work out of their house.
Mm-hmm.
These gentlemen, as I said, were from Holyoke, where you don't have to worry about the odor. And I'm going to let Ezra talk because he's better at it than I am.
No worries. So just to point out what Toby was saying is that we're not using any solvents or chemicals in our extraction process.
So just to be official, can you just give us your name
Oh,
and
of course.
address?
Yeah, sorry about that. Ezra Blue, 2 Sylvia Lane, Holyoke. So just to keep a point of what Toby was talking about, the less chemicals. So we're not using any chemicals in our extraction of the cannabis. So we're using solventless, so we don't have to worry about any explosions, like things that could happen in CO2 processing or any ethanol processing. So it's a very safe, chemical-free process, which has very minimal odor, and we're mitigating that with carbon filter lab hoods as well.
And so you take the product and you give it to other retailers, or you sell it to other retailers who then are relating to the public.
Yes, correct.
So if I can jump in with one early question, which you may cover in your presentation anyway. So for the packaging that's going to the retailers, do you mark it at your end, or does the person selling it have to mark what they're selling at their end?
We mark it on our end. So,
and so when you get to your thing, or now, whichever you prefer, could you just, run through how that
yeah, of course.
looks for us?
So all of our packaging has the 21 plus and child warning on it. And so we're going to be packaging and labeling everything in-house and making sure that the packages have the appropriate labels on them, the appropriate warnings, and so that when that goes out to the dispensary, it's all set for the dispensary. Just put it in their safe and shelves.
So just because I haven't actually seen it, is it similar to like the marking on the cigarette packs?
Very similar, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It stands on
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Black box.
All right, because what we keep hearing on the news all the time is the kids getting into this.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And getting sick and ending up in the ER. And I mean, it's like anything though, right?
Yep.
If you're an adult and you have it in your house, you need to keep it so your kids can't get it. Same
Correct
as
me,
the
of course.
alcohol cupboard, right? Or whatever.
And a big
But-
thing with the containers is they're all child safe. So with our cans or beverages, it has a child safe top on it.
Yeah.
So children can't even open up the can itself.
Yeah.
And so same thing with the packaging, the boxes. They're called vault boxes, and you need to actually have another tool to be able to open the box to be able to have access to the products.
Yeah. It's just we're hearing more and more of it, And it's sort of like, ew.
No, as a former educator in the high school system, my big goal is to make sure that children are not affected as much as possible with this,
Yeah.
and try to keep it as adult use as much as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right,
Councilor
so
Rivera?
Real quick, just around the packaging piece, and so I guess the packaging piece, you will be making all the packaging, like the labels and stuff, in-house, or you bring them in and then you guys will be labeling the products yourselves?
we'll be labeling the products inside.
So
We'll be ordering them and having them shipped in.
That will require certain staff to do that too as well.
Yes. Yep.
But then but I mean.
Oh, labor-based? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
labor-based. It would
provide a job, yes. Packaging is a large part of our process, from canning and
Right.
for the boxes.
So if
it
you
does
guys are
provide-
successful in the future, then you'd probably need to do a larger packaging operation.
Yep, more expansion.
All right. And then the other thing for me is when you're purchasing wholesale, the product, if it's possible, would you be able to purchase from people that are in Holyoke too as well?
Of course, our biggest thing is to try to stay local as much as possible. We're both from Holyoke. We love Holyoke a lot, so it's been a big part of our life, and we want to make sure the companies in Holyoke succeed as much as possible as well.
And then, will you guys be trying to do like a medicinal piece in the future?
We can't technically do that with our license that we have right now, so we're just staying in the recreational field.
I only asked because we still haven't had a medicinal.
There's one coming.
Oh, we have one coming. Okay. So, and I know that it's mostly drinks and a lot of edibles. So, like, that's a lot of people in the medicinal field like doing the edible stuff too. Anyway, so that's why I mentioned it. All right, thank you.
Definitely, thank you. All right, so I have a little presentation, just kind of an overview of what we're doing at Infused Element. We're a social equity manufacturing company out of Holyoke. So this is our site plan, which is very similar to the last one that we just saw. So our facility overview, it's a street level of one Cabot. It's 5,600 square feet. We are using a shared sally port. We're not open to the public. There is no public-facing component of our company on one Cabot. They'll only be able to purchase our products in dispensaries. We have a shared employee bathroom. All products manufactured will not use any chemical, non-hazardous extraction, so solventless. We're focusing on the beverage production and edible production, and then we're phasing into the smokable production. So operations overview, we're locally owned Holyoke natives. Isaiah Rosario and myself, Ezra Blue. We're manufacturing craft artisanal beverages, pastry shop edibles, rosin cartridges, concentrates, and pre-rolled joints. Preferential local hiring, we're going to have 9 employees. Majority of them are going to be working from home sales force. And then we're going to have our operational employee inside.
And how many of the 9 are working from home?
3 to 4. Traffic is very minimal on where we are, so about 15,000 cars daily. OSHA, food safety, and overall employee safety are critical to our success. OSHA is a really big part of I taught OSHA in high school for students for the last 11 years, and food safety as well, so it's a very big part of us. It's giving good products and not having to cut corners or do anything like that. Minimal odor, we're not growing or doing any chemical extraction. The only extraction we're doing is a heat press, which does have minimal odor, but you just take care of that. We're using our lab hoods as well. Minimal waste. We aren't going to have a lot of plant waste come out of our material. Right. And we're going to have a minimal trash as well, as we're working with liquids and baked goods. Our parking, this is our 4 spots that we're planning to have as designated. So as having 9 employees, we're looking at having the 4 parking spots for 4 people per 1 space, giving us 4 spaces and a little overfill. This is our layout that we have proposed. I will show you on the larger plan as of right now. Pull that up right here. Perfect. All right, so we have our beautiful processing facility right here. We have, if you start off here, this is our common secured loading area, the Sally Port, which will have access on the outside right there, and then allow other tenants to access the Sally Port as well.
So you're the tenant that's across from.
We're the tenant.
Future tenant B. Future tenant B.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And we've already ascertained that there is a wall.
Yes, there is a wall. And you can kind of see the breakdown of the spaces now. So we're going to have a secured shipping warehouse where pallet racks are going to be locked in cages to make sure the product is even more secured in our secured warehouse. We will have a security closet where we'll also have our security office in there as well, where our head of security, Mark, will be residing. We'll have our office, a hallway, and a break area, which will supply lockers for our employees as well, and an area to have their break. We will have a beverage production facility, which is very similar to a brewery, but no alcohol will be produced in this facility. We will have our secured vault in the middle of our facility to make sure that it's not up to any walls as CCC guidelines. We will have a functional bakery, best way to describe it. Our edible production will just look like a bakery where you get your nice fresh macaroons. Smoke production, and our processing lab. Our processing lab is where we will be processing the rosin, which is a nice heat press, which all you do is take fresh flour, you squeeze it, and you get your extraction from there. So it's very simple, very safe for our employees, and no particulate matter. We will have a full sanitation area with automatic dishwashers, triple sinks, and mop sink and water heater in this area, which will allow us to maintain our facility at a very high level of cleanliness. This is our team. Mark Vanderjack is our head of security. He was a head of security. He was a head of the court officers in Hoyoke, and so we're providing that service as bringing someone that's a vet into our department as well. Thank you. Any questions?
We kind of jumped, we asked you all our questions before you
No
got to do
worries.
your presentation. I'm just going through the papers here on the letters from planning. And it looks like everything was asked and answered through that pre-project. There, I don't see anything open on
Nope,
that.
everything I believe is submitted, yes.
Okay. And then on the one from our engineer, of course, they say if there's other things to be done in the building, but that would be the property owner at that point for any property changes to the building. And then I guess my only other question is around, you know, you sort of stipulated that when you're doing your processing or your manufacturing, you won't be using solvents. So does that mean that some people doing what you're doing would use solvents?
Yes, there's ways of extraction through ethanol and carbon,
Yeah.
which would be used to, so ethanol is alcohol, and alcohol is a very highly flammable solvent. So some processes use ethanol, but they do based off of their secure environments that they create. With us, we wanted to make sure we have a safe environment for our employees and a really good product for the customers, as without using any chemicals in them.
Okay, so in addition to the 8 standard conditions that we put on special permits, would you folks be comfortable if we put a 9th one that says that no solvents will be used in the manufacturing process? Yeah.
If, Madam Chair, I would ask.
Councilor Rivera, yeah.
I guess for me, it wouldn't be fair to add an extra condition that no one else has agreed to.
Well, so I would just say, you know, under
Just to keep it
discussion
fair and
that
consistent across the board.
I think we've only done maybe one other manufacturing
But
permit.
I-
And they're offering that they want to do it this way, which is a safer way.
No, I understand
I'm
that.
just sort of codifying.
No, I understand that, but I don't think it's fair to kind of pigeonhole them, even though they're offering it up. But it's just that, like, then if someone else comes along and they don't say any of that, and they use ethanol and they use all the solvents, and
No.
who just can't because they literally offered up to say that they want to be safe and do things the right way, whereas someone else comes along and just doesn't say anything and they can do it.
Well, just for the purposes of argument, I'll turn it around the other way, and we could ask all the people coming in.
I mean,
Are you
I'm
going to
okay
do
with,
it a safe
I'm o-
way and not
I'm o-
use
I'm
solvents?
Okay.
Just saying.
I'm okay with that, right? I'm
mean-
totally okay with that, and I hear that. But if that was the case from the beginning across the board, I'm with that. But to say it now because they offered it up, I just don't feel that it's fair. But hey, if
Well,
other members of the committee want to,
Well, and I asked the applicant because, you know, they're, you know, if they'd be comfortable with it. And I will just say this. So when we did the first one, I don't think any of us knew, and I'm not sure it was even this time. I think it might have been before. I don't know that anybody knew the difference, or if there was one way or two ways or three ways of doing something.
I guess what I'm saying is,
So, as we go with these permits and stuff, we learn.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to penalize them for
No.
them pretty much providing us with information and knowing their stuff. This is the best presentation I feel like I've gotten so far, all jokes aside.
Right.
Like of an owner that knows what they're dealing with across the board. Some of the others have come in and spoken briefly on some of the topics, but you've asked him questions and he's been able to answer some of your questions that have nothing to do with pertaining some of their issues here that they're bringing up. So, like, I don't know. I hear you. I'm with you. I agree with you 110%. I just wish that it was a condition that was asked to everyone else before we did that. I mean, if you guys want to add it.
No, just if I may, if they do want to incorporate some kind of solvent extraction in the future, that actually triggers all kind of building code requirements, like a C1, D1 room or explosive-proof box, if you will, which would require additional building permits that would have to get approved through safety, all kinds of life safety measures. So if hypothetically, which I don't see them going down that route, if they were to choose that route, they would have to go through all kinds of permitting and licensing, life safety on a second level for that being incorporated.
So then you would all have to come back in for an amended special permit
Exactly,
anyway,
yeah.
is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right then.
All right.
All right.
You can't just add solvents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see,
You
that
can't
was
just-
the part I didn't know. I didn't know if it's like this week you can do it without solvents, and
no.
next
No,
week
it's not
you can do it with
easy.
solvents.
It's not easy process. No.
CC is very highly regulated.
Okay.
Yes.
All right then.
And building code won't either.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it would be a different level.
Yep.
All right then. Well, fair enough. It was a good discussion.
hope
now,
we're
now we all even know more.
know that there's different methods of extraction.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. There's no education on it.
Right. Well, it's its own specialty thing.
And
right?
it's a new industry, so we're all learning
Yeah.
at the same time. So
Exactly.
there we go.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We are in a public hearing. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to this special permit, either in the chambers or on Zoom? Yes, please come to the microphone, and there's a little button on the top side to make sure it's on. And if you could give us your name and address and any comment you'd like to put in the record.
Sure. Frank Daly, Boston Bud Factory. My personal address is 109 Pennsylvania Ave in Springfield. I just wanted to comment. I agree with the fact that it's unfair to add additional conditions to one of the local businesses that are coming here in good faith trying to do something in their own town. And at this late date, after everybody has already gone through, it's really not fair to a small business to tax them additional conditions that other people haven't been subject to. The other thing I'll say is that we've signed a letter of intent with Infused Elements as well to support that business. They're one of the few local businesses that we've seen along with Damaris. So we don't see a lot of local Holyoakers coming through this process. So it was great to see some coming through that we're doing some stuff, and they're doing some amazing stuff because it is all the cleanest process you can do.
Okay.
So solvent-free is the cleanest process. There's no chemicals, there's no solvents, there's none of that process. Keeps it clean plant matter. So it's one of the cleanest forms of actually consuming.
Oh, great.
But I just wanted to show support for these guys. They've been great throughout this whole process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, not seeing any other questions. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
So following my tradition to not really speak on special permits, because I'm a believer as long as the applicant is meeting all the requirements and the experts, such as our engineer and whatnot, are saying they are approved and they are meeting all the requirements, then we should say yes. But I do want to comment on particularly Ezra and Isaiah's, because just like with the Maris, I think these are examples of the kind of people that we want running these type of businesses in our community, that are not just running the business, but are also involved in the community, involved in different aspects and creating a better Holyoke, which is what we all want. So I just want to say thank you for bringing the business. I've seen how far y'all have come, so I'm excited to see what comes next.
Thank you. All right, so the last thing I need to do is read into the record the conditions, which you already all heard, but since we have to do it officially in this one, I'll just quickly read them, okay? One, that the owner of the building always pay the commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit. Two, that the business retains a minimum 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. Check. Three, that the hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or are a retired member of another police department that now lives in the city of Holyoke. Four, that there shall be no marijuana consumption allowed on site. Five, that the hours of operation be set according to city ordinances. Six, that the applicant must abide by Massachusetts general laws and guidances from the Cannabis Control Commission. Seven, that the petition applicant shall conform with city and state health laws, rules, and regulations, including odor nuisance controls for the duration of the permit. And eight, that if substantial progress has not occurred within 2 years of issuance of the special permit, an extension shall be required. So are those acceptable to you as the applicant?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right, committee, what is your wish?
So,
Motion to close the public hearing.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
So motion approved, special permit for Infused Element, along with the 7 special conditions that were just read into the record. 8 special conditions that were read into the record.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Counselor GIVNER?
Yes.
Counselor MALDONADO VELEZ, sorry.
No, you're good. Yes.
Bacon, yes. Rivera?
Yes.
Jourdain?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a vote of 5-0 to recommend approval of your special permit. Thank you, and you've checked off a lot of the boxes. Holyoke, safe.
Thank you.
And so we wish you the best.
Thank you. We're really excited to be part of Holyoke.
And it'll come up at the city council meeting at the beginning of February.
Perfect.
All right. Have a good one.
Motion to take up item 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Order that the sewer use policy be revised to include recent requirements of the Environmental Protection Agency. This would modify Chapter 90 Utilities, Article 3 Sewers, Sections 90-81 Definitions, 90-83 Use of Public Sewers, and all of Division 2, which is 90 through -111 through 90-122. So, you all have received your reading assignment prior to this meeting. And Chris has very nicely offered to come down and give us the, what is that? The short version.
Recap.
It'll be very concise.
What was the cheat?
I call it Spark Notes. I don't know if that was.
There was another name for it too.
I don't know if that's too young.
Cliff Notes or whatever.
Cliff Notes.
But anyway,
All right, well, thank you all.
so thanks for coming down, Chris.
No problem, and thank you for hearing this. This has been in the works for many years. Basically what we're doing is we're updating our city sewer use policy so that it incorporates.
And bear with me just 1 minute. I just want to acknowledge that Mike Williams from Suez is on the Zoom. So he's here for this part.
Yep,
too.
and
Thank you.
Jason Swain should be on as well, also from Veolia, in case you have really detailed questions about it, they'd be able to answer. But I can give at least an overview of it. So there were new regulations put into effect at the federal level. So they essentially already are regulations that we have to follow. What the EPA wants is that these regulations, some of them get incorporated into the local ordinance and policies so that it's easier for Veolia to actually enforce them. So I'll go through, there's some kind of minor changes. Most of them are definition updates or adding definitions. So I'll just go through. The first 2 sections are just definitions and one small thing for the MS4 program, which is kind of unrelated to sewers, but more about storm drains. And then everything else is all related to the industrial pretreatment program. So that's all the industrial users in the city that discharge into our sewers that go to the treatment plant. So the first section that you have is section 90-81, and this is just definitions. And this is just adding the definition for an illegal storm drain discharge and an illicit storm drain discharge. So it's pretty clear. It's stuff you can't put into the storm drains.
Is it going to change anything that are any of these things going to change anything that we've been doing, or they're all things we've already been doing?
They are all things that have already been law.
Okay.
And they've already been implemented this way.
Okay.
These ones are specific to the MS4 program, which is the thing that is under the Stormwater Authority. So that's all these things. This doesn't change. None of these changes actually modify anything that's already being implemented or any laws that were already on the books, essentially.
We are doing them, but this is just codifying it locally.
At the local level. That's
right. So I was going to say, if I may, Madam Chair, so
Councilor Rivera.
if I'm understanding it, it's law, but it's not ordinance yet.
Right.
Correct.
So they want us to make it ordinance.
Yep. Yeah. So, so the city is essentially the control authority, and Veolia implements our industrial pretreatment program, and the EPA wants us to be able to have the teeth to actually, do the full job, because all of the industrial users obviously interact with Veolia. They don't interact with the EPA. So as the control authority, we're the ones that are implementing the program. So it makes sense that it's in our local ordinances to be able to implement it correctly. So, so that's really it. This doesn't change anything that's already law, and it won't change anything for any of the industrial users that.
It will kind of like implement the law for us on the local level.
Yeah, except we already have been. I mean,
been
Veolia implements the industrial pre-treatment program as it's specified in the Code of Federal Regulations. So this is just, I guess, putting it into our local ordinance so that, I guess, individuals who are getting into our industrial pre-treatment program would be able to read our local regulations.
And maybe find it more easily or
Accessible, yeah.
But they would still have to do it.
No, it makes
yeah.
sense. It's just,
Yeah.
It sounds like they've been doing the work already.
We have.
It's just that we just have to put the actual ordinance together.
Right.
Yeah, which is something, this is basically what the EPA has asked for. So, yeah.
Was that part of the consent decree too?
It was not, no.
No?
It's totally
Okay.
different. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally different.
I won't complicate.
No, that's okay. So there's two definition updates in section 90.81. Section 90-83. This is the use of public sewers. All it does is add and storm drains onto things. So basically, you see the things that were added here. It's that people shouldn't dump this whole entire list of things into our sewers or storm drains. So hazardous materials, it's really kind of
Basically
common
anything.
sense. I mean, sewage should go into the sewers and stormwater should go into the storm drains, and that's it.
Man.
So that's really that's really the only change in section 90-83. Okay. So moving on. Let's see. So the largest changes are in Division 2, which I mentioned was the industrial wastewater discharge programs. This is really the pretreatment program. So if you scroll through, there's a lot of updates to definitions in additions to definitions. So this is just things that are being defined by the EPA that we're just adding into our definitions in our ordinance. As you see on page 3, there's a bunch of information about what a new source is. So that's when a new industry, comes online. There's basically, the biggest changes are about making sure people know that there's limits to what's called slug discharges. So make sure we're controlling those. Like if somebody has something that's really acidic, that they're not dumping it all in what's called a slug, so like all at one time, because it upsets the plant. So there's controls on that are spelled out in more detail. There are a lot of there's a lot more that's written about prohibited discharges and also about what's called significant non-compliance. So if there is an industry that's non-compliant with our regulations, it does get published in the newspaper that they weren't compliant, and so
I did read that.
Yeah,
I was a little confused though in terms of the compliance. So who is making sure they're compliant? Veolia?
Yep,
or-
that's Veolia. So there's
That's
samples.
Veolia,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. There's samples that are collected of their industrial
part of the
discharges
contract
and sent
that
in.
we
Yep.
have with
Yep. So they
Veolia.
have a permit
Okay,
with the city through Veolia.
all right.
So yeah, they're sending samples and we check them. Yeah, so I don't know. There's not really much else. A lot of the other things are about communication between the industries and Veolia, and then about reporting on compliance issues. So that's really it. I don't know if there's any specific questions that you might have about any of the, because everything was in track changes, everything that was
Yep.
proposed to be changed. So.
Yeah. Well, so I guess my only question would be, because I see Mike on the Zoom too, so.
Yep.
And I know we've had this long-standing contract.
Yep.
So is everything that's in here, because it's EPA, already covered in our contract? So that this isn't changing anything?
Nope, this isn't
That's
changing.
happening between us and Veolia or anything else?
It's not, no. So Veolia implements the industrial pretreatment program
Yep.
on behalf of the city, and so that doesn't change anything. And they're, under their contract, it's specified that they comply with
EPA
with
and-
most like regulatory
And all the other alphabets?
changes. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Givner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. How do they know which industry is a culprit, if there is one?
So they're taking samples of the discharges that are coming from the
At
different
the actual
industries at
locations.
that discharge location. If there is a slug of something that they didn't capture in the treatment, they may know based on the nature of it, of what kind of chemical it was, if it came to the plant and upset the plant. I don't know if Mike, if you want to jump in, or Jay, about kind of tracking, if you do get some sort of slug of something into the plant, how you would trace back who that came from.
Thank you for the time tonight. And yes, we do have the ability to check samples. We have an open relationship with the industrial users within the community. Knowing the type of chemicals, the processes that they're operating under would give us a pinpoint location that we would be able to track down and identify. And if something came in and upset the treatment plant, and we had go from a normal operation to an overflow or an overnight type of change in the process, we would instantly reach out to an industrial user that would have the potential to affect us, whether it's a caustic or an acidic type of upset. We would check it with pH and have the ability to really try to work with them, and hopefully that they're honest with us. There is guidelines and regulations that allow us to do unannounced visits to these industrial users as well. So during this type of situation, we would show up as well to the site to get an understanding of what occurred in the previous hours.
Great.
Madam Chair.
Are you all set? And how many do we have in the city right now that you're doing this for or with?
Currently, we have 7 identified significant industrial users.
Councilor Rivera?
Are any of them in the cannabis industry?
So no, cannabis industry actually is not a categorical user as far as the requirements. We do have a industrial pretreatment program that has them fill out an application based on the volume of water discharged and any pollutants or acids or chemicals that they would use in their product lines that would potentially enter the storm drain. So prior to their applications, it's been the standard to have them fill out this application and have us verify for this on behalf of the city of Holyoke that all sewer use ordinances will be adhered to reduce any type of potential upsets to the community.
So in the application, you'll be able to find out what chemicals are being used at their sites, right?
Yep, and most of them being food grade, they do use a biosafe type chemical a lot of times, or acid washing. So there's the abilities to acid wash and neutralize this chemical prior to discharge.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands on Zoom. I think that was pretty straightforward.
Counselor Bacon?
Yes, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I had one question.
Sure.
So this ordinance, you feel only really affects 7 users, in your opinion?
So there are more, Mike, there are more industrial users than just the significant industrial users, right, that fall under this ordinance?
So this ordinance would adhere to any and all businesses within the community. It doesn't identify just SIUs. The definitions are defined for all potential connection dischargers to the sewer system. The SIUs, as part of the streamlining to change, to make it easier for future applicants to understand the regulations within the Code of Federal Regulations.
I had an opportunity to review the documents, and you did a very nice job, especially with the red lines too, in order to tease out the changes. Because it's pretty weighty, meaty stuff that you're doing, but it all seems perfectly reasonable from my vantage point. But I will just ask, is there any sort of, whenever we have changes of this nature, I do ask the question, is there any financial impact either to the city from an enforcement side, or is there any potential financial impact to any business or industry in the city as a result of the city council adopting these changes? Is there any projected monetary or financial impact to anyone as a result of this?
Yep, there really shouldn't be, because this was already federal law and regulation, so it was already, being enacted this way. So there shouldn't be any change to how business is being conducted with the industrial users in the city.
Let me ask it a separate way, because how you're answering it is helpful to us in that you're saying, well, you're no worse off than you already were, in that, what Washington did, Holyoke is just codifying. But let me ask the question a different way. What Washington adopted, these new federal rules and regulations, was there a financial impact to our businesses here in Holyoke or to any particular user that we should be aware of? Or was there, from a enforcement mechanism, or was there an added cost to us or any of our sewer users as a result of the adoption of these?
Well, this was from 2005, and this was actually a streamlining attempt. So I don't know, Mike, I don't know if you know at that time if they actually, I don't think any of the, the standards for the limits of any chemicals changed or anything else significant changed at that time. I believe it was just trying to streamline how these industrial users are handled.
Yeah, so every so often we are required to review our local limits that the EPA sets forth. So we have to adapt any local limits to the EPA's fourth set guidelines and regulations based on the receiving water bodies in being the Connecticut River for Holyoke. So any of the potential contaminants or pollutants that are restrictive and had to be adhered to it isn't new to the industrial community. It is a continuing monitor thing, and we just continue to add if there is any new contaminants. I'll say something along the lines of silver, for instance, was modified and changed for the table as we only tracked it as a monthly maximum, and now we needed to give a daily value as well. So it was data that was already being recorded, but they just need to now, as part of the streamlining group, is to record it as a daily as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, did you, if I was listening carefully, did you say that these rules have been in effect for quite a long time, maybe as much as 17 or 18 years? You said 2005. So this has pretty much been the standard for a long time?
Agreed. Yep. So that would be the case. Again, local limits every 5 years have to be reviewed. A third-party engineering firm assists with the. Again, there's a whole document process to assigning local limits to these industrial users. Again, there's a multiple tiered factor variables for what requires and sets these limits. So every 5 years, again, we review these local limits and ensure that all the SIUs are adhering to these as well as protecting the environment properly.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, if everyone's questions have been satisfactorily answered, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that the ordinance modifications be adopted.
Second.
Okay.
Do we need legal form? Is this the legal form for that? Do we need for ordinance change? I'm just asking.
So is this, Chris, in legal form, just amending our current legal ordinance? So it's just
Yep. Yeah.
in the
so,
form of our current ordinance, right?
Yep. So everything, these red lines were on the current ordinance. So Jeffrey, I guess, should be able to revise our current ordinance with these red line revisions.
So Attorney Bissonette, if the committee adopts this tonight, do we need to separately request legal form from your department because this is a draft not from our legal department?
It's been reviewed and vetted as part of our negotiations for the combined sewer overflow consent decree.
Yeah.
And now we've submitted this as part of those negotiations, which we've completed. So we expect to be able to report to you hopefully either Tuesday or soon thereafter the final results of those negotiations. But this is certainly a part of it, and it hasn't been quite a while, and they're very anxious to see Holyoke move forward on it. So this can be used with the edits taken out, a final version that can present it to the council next time.
Okay, so if you were breaking up a little bit, but what I'm hearing is we're within our
sat down
bounds
with
to
them.
approve it tonight and send it to council. That we're in the proper form
Correct.
to do that. Okay,
Yeah, we worked with Lisa Ball on it.
Yep.
So we sat down with her and went through it.
okay. So we have a motion from Councilor Jourdain to
Second.
approve the amendments, and it's been seconded. So Councilor GIVNER?
Yes.
Councilor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Councilor Bacon, yes. Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Jourdain?
Yes.
So the amendment to the ordinance passes on a 5-0 vote, and this will be presented to City Council at the first meeting in February. Thank you all for attending and answering our questions. And are you the only one we need for the next one, right, Chris? All right, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Jason, for being on the Zoom.
Have a good evening. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Take care.
Motion to take up item 6.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. So hang on. Item 6. Order that an ordinance is created for pavement cut moratorium, proposed as new section 78-59. So I'll give you the floor. Chris, we did get language from you to look over.
Yep.
Which made sense to me. And I guess the only thing I'll ask before you just get into a quick overview of it is, has this been, what would the word be? Blessed, agreed to by the other departments that would be affected?
So yeah, so I can give a brief overview.
Okay.
So this, in effect, I mean, this pavement moratoriums are just a general industry standard. So all the utility companies already abide by this essentially. Some of the things like the full width overlays that are done after trenches are put in. That's kind of it's not done in all communities, but Holyoke Water Works has been very gracious in doing that, and Holyoke Gas and Electric does that on occasion as well. So we obviously have worked well with the municipal utilities, but there's been nothing written down on this. So it's been sort of a policy that I guess people in the industry understand. But since I've been here, there's been a couple of instances where homeowners are not aware of this. So this also does affect residents who either are replacing a sewer lateral out to the middle of the street where the sewer main is, they're having to cut through the road, or if someone wants to get a driveway cut and so they go for a driveway permit and they don't realize that if their road was just cut, that there's a pavement moratorium on their roadway for 5 years, which means that when we pave, we don't want people cutting into our fresh pavement for 5 years. So this is in almost all of the communities in Massachusetts, they do this, and some communities just have it as a policy. Some communities don't have it written down, like we didn't, and then some communities have it as an ordinance. And so I was choosing to go the ordinance route, thinking that it would give more opportunity for public input, for people to be able to find it on the internet, and also for it to not be changed without public input, because if it's a DPW policy, that could just be modified and, either taken off the website or put on without much public input.
Okay,
So,
so
yes.
I have 3 questions.
Yes.
I have questions too.
So if we implement this and somebody doesn't know about it, and their road, say, got repaved last year, and they want to resurface their driveway,
Yep.
does that mean they can't?
Well, I actually wrote something into that. So they do have to get a waiver, but if you're staying within 18 inches of the curb line, you can just basically do a permanent patch and crack seal it.
That would be okay.
So that's what's written
Oh,
here
okay.
for
All
driveway,
right.
because that
I
did
might have glazed
come
over
up
that.
specifically. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that when people see this, if they see that their road is going to be paved, which is a list that I hope to get on the internet soon.
That would be nice, too.
That they could get their driveway permits
Done
and cuts
quicker or
in
whatever.
advance of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been working, I mean, it has been practiced that the DPW has worked with, HG&E and Waterworks over the years to let them
Okay.
know what we're paving. So that's happening behind the scenes, but it's not put out to the public usually. So I'm trying to make everything a little more public in this process. So we should have probably within the next few weeks, actually, the paving list for this year and next year up on the website
Well,
for the DPW. And
and-
so people can kind of track this a little better.
And that would be really important because everybody's anxious to get their streets repaved, especially the older neighborhoods. But then they wouldn't want to have a negative surprise. And this way, if we could put out the list and say, if you're thinking of doing this in the next 1 to 3 years, do it now, because this is happening then, that would be really good for, I think, especially ward counselors to be able to put out to the residents, because usually every year DPW does this, they try to do X miles in each ward, from what I understand. Yeah. Right, and you're on that a lot, about giving people notice ahead of time.
Yeah, and that's what happened. There was a resident on Martin that this thing happened. Like, she had absolutely no idea that her street was going to be paved, and she wanted a driveway, and everything was in the wrong order. So this is trying to kind of prevent that, and also let people know what they should anticipate if they do want to do something, how they have to repair the road, because really we're trying to protect our investment in
Right,
our
so it'd be a
pavement
matter of
program as
having
well.
the driveway contractor do that as well as the driveway.
Yeah,
Don't stop
so
at
if
the end of
someone's
the
just
driveway,
if
fix the
someone's
road.
just paving the driveway, they would typically stop at the back of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
If they did want to do their apron, this would come into play.
Okay.
Because you'd be into the street.
Gotcha.
Madam Chair, if I-
Councilor Rivera, yeah.
So I guess the concern where it comes from me, because I don't have a driveway and I want a driveway, right? So if what you're saying
Get it
is,
quick.
what if I don't know and you pave the sidewalk in front of my house, I won't be able to get a driveway for 5 years.
No. So there is an exception for
Oh, yeah. Which
for
one
the
is it?
driveway.
Just so
So
we can
this
look
is
it
on the back page, number 5. So if you're just doing a driveway and you're 18 inches or less off of the edge of the pavement, then you just have to replace that section right along the gutter
Well,
line.
I guess I'm asking because if I'll have enough time because I work for the city now, or I'm a city councilor. So if it's happening, I'll find out, and I'll be able to say, hey, listen, can I get my curb cut and get the driveway done before you guys do it, right? But let's say I sell my house and then the sidewalk was done. I didn't care to get a driveway, but the next person that wants to buy the house wants to put a driveway in.
Yeah,
Like, would
yeah.
that be-
So that's why there is this
Okay.
exception in
Perfect.
there for that. So there's exceptions for obviously emergencies. If you have like a lateral break and you have to cut through the road, you'd be able to do that. And then it's just if there's planned work, we'd like you to wait. But so that's why I did put that exception in there, because it is understandable for driveway curb cuts that you know, not the residents probably are not going to want to wait, and it's not that detrimental because if you're within 18 inches of the curb line, you're not cutting through the wheel path.
Right.
So it's less likely to actually create, you know, potholes and heaves in the future.
Okay.
So, and that's where the crack seal comes into. So we're asking that they put crack seal down and not just butt the pavement together, but actually stop water from going through the crack.
That works. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chris, for coming. Is there a process of notifying residents when there is work getting done? Like, I mean, following, just in general, like if there is a process or if that should be part of this, where it's like we ask that we communicate to the residents where the street's getting made on, like, or do we want to include that in this? So that's the question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm up for input or feedback on this, but my idea was just to put the either 2 or I hope to get to where we can have a 3-year outlook on what we're going to pave in the next 2 to 3 years. So that would be the mode of communication would be to have the pavement list on the DPW website. As far as, I guess I hear what you're saying, that the residents would have to put that together, that then they have to look at the list and they have to know that this moratorium is in place. I mean, this really would only apply to people getting new driveways, really.
Right, not a repaving.
If you're repaving it, you wouldn't be affecting the roadway at all. So, and it's, you know, I guess there's not as many new homes going up in Holyoke, and there are definitely people who don't have driveways currently that want them, that come in for driveway permits. But like I said, that would be allowed here. You know, and it's not overly cumbersome to just crack seal around a
for the
patch.
contractor.
So, for the contractor to do that, it doesn't really.
And if you don't have sidewalks, your driveway goes to the road, but it won't go more than 18 inches into the road.
No, so if they do a nice saw cut around and repair it,
Yeah.
it won't really add much to the cost for the homeowner. So.
Yeah, but I like your idea, though, of posting the roads for repaving. 2 years ago, we got a list, that spreadsheet. Now, it doesn't include every street, and of course, ward councilors usually get called, can I get my street repaved? And we put forth, can you look at this one too, kind of thing. So it's not all inclusive. Some get done that we don't ask, and others do get added, right?
Right.
But it would be great if it could be on the website.
Yeah, agreed.
That
Yeah,
would
because
be-
we're also doing, I mean, for this year, we will have crack sealing, we'll have micro surfacing, and then we'll also have full resurfacing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was a nice list to have. So if people contacted me, I could look and say, well, it's scheduled for this.
Yeah.
It's not a ironclad guarantee.
Right,
but-
no, it's not.
But it is on
yeah.
the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry? Oh, yes, Counselor Jourdain, and I just want to finish by saying, is there a way maybe when we roll it out to say every effort will be made to post the streets for resurfacing, repaving out 3 years or something to that effect?
Yeah, probably 2 years is more reasonable.
Yeah,
I could
okay.
try and do
That's
3,
fair.
but
Yeah.
it's hard to know what'll happen. Yeah.
Counselor Jourdain, sorry, I didn't see your hand at first.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I want to just come back to the sewer one a little bit. I guess I would be concerned, I know you wrote an emergency, it may be permitted. So there wouldn't be a situation where if somebody's sewer failed going back into the street at the culvert, the way they're designed, that the DPW would not allow them to fix the sewer, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So that's actually under Section D. That's the exception to the moratorium for emergencies.
I did see that. Is there a reason it only says may be permitted? So if, for example, there's an emergency which endangers life, property, or public health or safety.
Yep, or interruption of
seems
the
like
essential
it's-
utility.
Yeah, it says that it's up to the determination of the city engineer or public works director, that it's up to your discretion. So you might say no.
Yeah, I guess the idea there was that it wouldn't be the resident making the determination of what the emergency was, that we did want, the individual to come in with those issues before they cut into the road. But if there's other wording, do you want me, I guess I could change it to, will be allowed, but you have to notify the city engineer prior to work being conducted or something like that.
How about if Kevin, can I throw in a suggestion?
Sure.
Exceptions to the above moratorium are permitted in a situation where the public works director / city engineer determine an emergency to exist.
Well, how about this? I was thinking that they be permitted unless either the public works director or city engineer determines that, fill in the blank word you want to use at this point, that this should, basically it's allowed unless you determine it not to be allowed. And you'd have to give a reason, right?
Well, so, just for
Because
purposes.
I was under the impression that whether we had this moratorium or not, that you can't just cut into the street without the DPW's prior approval anyways, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's already the rules. So it isn't that people are just gonna be running into tearing up the street without DPW prior approval anyways. This is saying this is creating a second layer, because the first one.
Oh, okay. You're fading away.
Okay, how about now?
Now you're good. You're back.
All right, so what I was suggesting is that you need permission to go into the street already. And this is adding a second approval that says, because I don't know why the DPW would just say, that's not an emergency. We don't allow you to go into the street now, period. Have a nice day. As opposed to this is sort of creating a second layer, which you need.
Yeah, I guess sometimes people could maybe interpret emergency situations that aren't really emergencies.
Okay.
That's what I was just trying to avoid, people putting their own definitions on what may be an emergency for them.
Right.
May not be a real, utility service emergency.
Chris, if you could just tweak the wording
Yeah.
on this a little bit to just make it that we're going to allow these unless you can step in, or the public works director says, what, we reviewed this and because, maybe something like for cause, you've determined that this is not in the city's best interest or something, that this be allowed. Like, it's allowed unless you object.
Sure. Yeah, I'll rework it. I know what you're getting at. Basically, it will be allowed as long as it is an authentic emergency and someone's not just saying, "Oh, this is an emergency." I just didn't want people to think they, can go ahead and do it. But you are right. A road opening permit is still required, even if it is an emergency. So it should be caught there.
Right, exactly. So now, with this, does this change the type? So let's just say under current rules, somebody either has the driveway that they redo, or they're putting in a failed sewer that has to be dug up. Right now, the rule is you don't have to do like curb to curb resurfacing, or is it just a patch? Like, what, does this change any of like what the repair would have to be if granted one of these situations?
It does not. It just was never, it hasn't been formally put as a policy on the website, but this is, as my understanding from, the previous city engineer and the director, that this has been what has been required in our road opening permits.
Okay.
So this isn't required. If the road is more than 5 years old, you don't have to do the full width.
And if it's under that, you do, under this rule.
Correct. Yeah.
So that is a change.
No, it's not a change in how, I was just clarifying that you don't always have to do the full width if it doesn't fall within the moratorium.
Oh, I see. So if it's outside 5 years, you can.
So
just
yeah,
do
so
the
if this
back.
is an old roadway, this is not, none of this applies, and you can do a trench and do a permanent patch in the trench, and you don't have to do the full width or the extra 10 feet. So this
Right.
only applies to roadways that have been paved within the last 5 years.
Okay. I got that part.
And it
so
this is how it's been done at the DPW. It just was never written down anywhere formally or presented to the public in any way that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
like the fact that you're bringing forward this so people know what the ground rules are. I do appreciate you doing that. Because, process is important. People, they know what the rules are, so there's clarity. So I just want to go back to the driveway situation because I'm trying to consider, the most obvious. And I already talked about sewer. So the driveways, like, for example, I'll just use myself. My driveway, I don't have a new road. I have a very old road. This wouldn't apply to me anyway. But just change the scenario where I have a driveway that goes all the way to the street. I have no sidewalk. And I want to have my driveway repaved. It's as long as I stay within 18 inches of the end of my driveway, I would not be impacted by the moratorium.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is really more geared toward people who are making a new driveway cut, because presumably if you were replacing your driveway, you would do the saw cut right at the end of your driveway. You wouldn't disturb the roadway at all.
Right.
So this is more geared toward people that have granite curb across where they want to put a new driveway. So the 18 inches gives them enough room to do a saw cut, pull out the granite curb, and do a patch right in front of where they're putting a new driveway.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's really that type of situation that I was most worried about, where you actually do need to go into the roadway.
I see.
Whereas most people, I can't really think of a situation unless they had some kind of unique, brickwork or, reset, granite at the end of your driveway. You really wouldn't have any reason to disturb the roadway at all. Just repaving a driveway.
Okay. So you don't see this really impacting just regular citizens day in and day out. This would be something more like if a new house went up and there was no driveway there at all type of situation.
Yep, but I was also trying to write it so that it wouldn't actually impact that situation as much either. If they can stay within the 18 feet, all they really have to do is patch it and crack seal it. You don't have to do the full width. Like, Springfield actually doesn't have this clause in there. This is, there's other towns that have really similar moratorium language, but not this curb line one. And I did put this specifically in for those types of residents so that it doesn't actually impact residents unnecessarily. If they're not cutting through where the wheel path is, there's not a reason to make them do a full width overlay.
Yeah, because we're not trying to crush people,
No, exactly. We're trying to be reasonable, and also, let people know that we want these patches to be done right, because we also do want to protect our new roadways and make our investments worthwhile. So there's both sides of it, that we're trying to be reasonable with the homeowners, but also we are spending a lot of money repave streets, so we want to protect that investment.
Yeah, that makes sense. As long as, the big stuff of redoing of people's driveways, because that happens all the time, or certainly we want people to be able to do that every 10 or 15 years or whatever it is that it has to be done. And I will say that I appreciate this exception. That's important to me, certainly, because people, as nice as it sounds, redo your driveway when the street gets redone. It doesn't work out that way. We live in a poorer community as a general rule. So my budget, my family budget may not coincide with when you want to redo the street. I might get my tax refund this year, and as a result, I have the money to redo it. Whereas, waiting around 4 more years until it gets redone, that money's long gone. So we need to be a little it isn't like people have, or at least a lot of people don't have, fat reserves sitting in their checking account waiting for the street to get redone. So I want to be sensitive to that too.
Are you all set?
I am all set. I think you've covered it. Just a little tweaking on that, on the sort of the emergency one, and I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Should I come back with the revised draft, or how do you want to handle?
Well, is it something we can just do now?
We
can we
could do it. We could also.
Because we will have to send this for legal form, I believe, because it's a new section.
Yeah.
So here's how I'd like to approach it if committee is willing, but before we get there, I just have a couple comments and a question. So given the way this is written, then is it already practice that HG&E Water coordinates with DPW relative to the plan and any just regular improvements they're doing relative to repaving?
Yes.
That already happens.
That already happens. And they're well aware of the moratorium, so they don't.
So everybody's on the same page?
Everyone's on the same page. As far as
Okay.
the utilities go, this has been happening
Okay.
behind the scenes already. So.
Okay. And then my only other comment is for the neighborhoods that say haven't had their roads resurfaced since the neighborhoods were built in a number of cases in the city, they have in a couple areas miles of patches, literal miles. And of course, they don't last because of the nature of them, right? And I'm thinking Blueberry Hill, and so I don't know if there's like an extensive job that has to be done and that really does just totally dig up the road. Is there any way that kind of a circumstance gets maybe a little extra consideration going forward for the repaving? I don't
quite
know
sure.
if in the scheme of things, and I guess it would, perhaps depend, are the patches holding up? But
I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can ask it in a different way. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
so what I'm wondering is if there's extensive patching that has had to be done on roads,
Yep.
any road,
Yep.
that has not been resurfaced for, say, 30 years, does that at all take that older road, because it didn't have to go curb to curb with the patch because it's an old road,
Yep.
and get it into any consideration for repaving sooner than one that didn't get all cut up? I mean, I guess that's just a question. And it doesn't have to be answered in the moment.
Yeah, we have a pavement management system.
Yeah.
And it's basically an artificial intelligence valuing system where they go through and they take photographs every 10 feet of all the roads and then assign a condition to every road.
Oh, okay.
So all the segments have overall conditions.
Oh, okay.
And so those are ranked, and then the general idea is that roads that are not as bad, you want to do crack sealing and preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Roads that are kind of moderate, you might do a micro surface or like just a thin overlay, and then the roads that are in the worst shape, you would resurface them, and then at the end of that, kind of what you're describing, if the base is actually bad, you have to do a full reclamation, which is about $1 million a
big
mile,
job,
is what it ends up being.
Yeah.
And so we really don't actually do any of that
Yeah.
in the city. We mostly just do the one tier
Right.
down, which is the milling off the top surface and resurfacing.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm not sure if that answers your question. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, probably we'll have that analysis redone of all the field work in another couple of years. So when they drive through and there's patches, that gets picked up in the conditions assessment.
Yeah.
So that would put that roadway, it would bump it up higher in the list.
Yeah, because just in the area that I'm thinking of, I don't even know if it was water pipes or gas pipes or even what it was. All I know is when I'm driving down the roads, there's like road after road after road that has these long patches that are like this wide.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But so I was just curious. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that would get picked up in the analysis essentially.
Okay.
As
great.
a poorer condition. Because
Great.
there'd be lots of cracks.
So if the committee is willing, what I'd like to suggest is that we make a motion to adopt this with the minor amendment to D and send it to legal to get it in legal form and have it come back to committee.
Yeah.
That way, it's moving and we're not having to wait and then do it again. Does that
sounds
sound
great.
reasonable?
Yeah, so let's table it. I'll send it to legal, adjust this, and then come back next meeting.
So we'll look for legal form at our next meeting.
So I was gonna say there's two different things. Well, I was gonna say, what's the difference between tabling and adopting it? Because you were saying to adopt it, send it to legal for the language, and then take it back. He's saying to table.
We should get the legal form back to us before we officially adopt it.
Right.
But we
So then-
can agree to it and ask for it in legal form.
Yeah.
Which is
Still table.
what we're doing by tabling it and asking for the legal form.
Okay, that's just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
And then, Chris knows that just a little rework of D, how it's worded. And then we'll get another look at it, but it'll be ready to go, largely. Counselor Givney.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if we can't, could it be ready for the next council meeting with the amendments and we can just move forward? Because it sounds like they were pretty minor changes. Or do we want it to come back for discussion?
Well, what is the will of the committee? We have all the language except for maybe one sentence,
I'm okay.
you know? Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Chris?
That's fine.
Counselor
Jourdain, can you hear us?
Yeah, no, I think Counselor Givner's suggestion is a good one. As long as we have an opportunity to read the final language, ideally, if it could be sent to us, as soon as it's done.
We have to get
a
it.
concern, we can always just take it from there. Otherwise, we just move forward.
Yeah, and we already have our rule that we'll get it 48 hours before, but we're way ahead of our next meeting.
Right.
So we should have plenty of time to get it and all of us look at it.
So as long as you think you can get it,
Yeah.
Chris.
It's also not, we
It's-
haven't had this for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not time.
It's not complicated language, right? All right. Well, then I'll entertain a motion that we adopt the recommended changes, request legal form to be given to us so that it could be acted on at the next city council meeting. That would be the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon, yes. Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Jourdain?
Yes.
All right, well, good enough. Very good.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris.
And then,
Motion to take up item 7.
Second.
thank you. Was there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, order that the Holyoke City Council review and amend Section 5.4 of the zoning ordinance to allow for accessory dwelling units in the DR zone, in addition to amending Section 2 definitions and any other sections that may apply to allow this use in the DR zone. Accessory dwelling unit is a smaller independent residential dwelling unit located on the same lot as a standalone, i.e. detached single-family home. Public hearing was closed on 12/13. We all received a recommendation from the planning board. So the recommendation from the planning board is dated January 11th, and it recommends the letter's addressed to me, and it says, please be advised that at our January 10th, 2023 meeting, the Holyoke Planning Board discussed the above referenced zone change request. After consideration of all information presented during the public hearings, the board voted 4-0 to recommend that the zoning text change be adopted as follows. And the as follows is what I just read, as the order that we're taking up. And it goes on to say the changes to the section 5.4 and adding section 5.4.1.b as follows. 5.4.1.b, accessory dwelling units. In their recommendation, they're saying that in the downtown residential zone, a second residential structure may be erected pursuant to a special permit issued by the planning board in accordance with section 9.3 herein and the following conditions. 1, the second dwelling is an accessory dwelling unit, ADU as defined in section 2.0. 2, if the second dwelling is larger than the original primary dwelling, then upon completion and occupancy, the larger dwelling shall be deemed to be the primary dwelling, and the smaller dwelling shall be deemed to be the ADU. 3, the owner of the land on which the ADU is to be created shall occupy one of the dwelling units, either the primary or the secondary. 4, any ADU shall be sited in such a way as to provide adequate access for emergency personnel. And 5, approval of an ADU in the DR zone shall conform to the relevant procedures and requirements of section 8.8 downtown residential district, including without limitation dimensional requirements unless reduced pursuant to section 8.85. Now, during the public hearing, we had some discussion and not necessarily consensus relative to who would be the permitting authority. And under the definitions, we also talked about whether the ADU would be attached to the main building or a separate building. And the definition that we contemplated, to my recollection, included one that would be attached or potentially one that was separate. I don't see that in this language, but I actually like the one that was attached to the original building. And that was in the definition.
I thought that didn't matter.
That doesn't matter, yeah. According to, yeah.
I thought the main point was that it can't be sold separately.
Well, but right now, they couldn't build it and attach it either, as far as I understand.
I think.
So, because the definition that we had in front of us talked about.
There were 3 different types. There were 3 different
Right.
types of definitions, but the ones
Right.
that they mostly cited in the planning department meeting that we had were the attached and the one that was
Correct.
separated.
Right.
And the situation comes with the attached is that like most people that are building an attached ADU is usually like a garage or something like that. And that doesn't literally fall under that. I don't think it falls under the ADU thing. It's a whole different circumstance. So it kind of like does not apply when it comes to that, unless they're literally building something separate that is not a garage. And even if it was, if let's say you're building an extension to your house and you're building a room to your house, that's not literally building an ADU compared to the actual home situation. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Counselor Givner?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The definition does say that it can be attached or detached, and it must include sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities.
You're right.
And whatever we approve, I want it to say that.
Well, isn't this is the definition, and I thought these are things that are being added. Maybe we need to see it all
Okay.
together, because I'm not under the impression that
Okay,
the
I'm
definition
with
does
you.
not include this information. I'm under the impression
That
that
it
we are
does.
adding section 5.4.1.b to the existing definition.
Right, it does say add definition in section 2.
Point out, it says right here, add definition.
Which to your point, does say self-contained attached.
Or detached.
Or detached. So if that's added in there, then
Yeah.
it is there.
It has to
It's
be on
just
the
not
same
in
lot.
that,
It's just
it's
not
not
in
an accessory.
because it already exists
it
in the
becomes
definition.
part of the whole. Okay, I'm with you.
I
I think.
No, you're right.
I kind of want a motion.
I've got it.
To approve
So-
the amended language as is, but I will still defer to the committee in discussion.
Okay, well, hang on one second, because I did get feedback from the maker of the order. I mean, I know there was more than one maker of the order. I think there were 4 on it. But Counselor Bartley was the primary maker of the order. And the feedback that he gave me is under the last section, 5.4.1.b. He would like to see that the Holyoke Fire Department signs off on the plan that there would be adequate access, because, you're putting a separate building somewhere past or behind or somehow.
Wouldn't they have to approve codes anyways?
Yeah.
Well,
That's like trying to take control of the sewage system or something. Like,
well,
they have to have these things. They have to be accessible for safety reasons.
right. And so I think he's not saying that he's agreeing with that, but he just sort of like the special permit where the police department has to sign off on the security plan for the marijuana. He just wants to make sure the fire department takes a look and says, yeah, we can get in there.
I
I don't
know
see
if-
that it hurts anything.
I feel like it's an extra process that's unnecessary, and that it could possibly hurt something, depending on the opinion of that particular person that's doing the assessment as a firefighter. Everyone interprets
It's not
laws and
subjective.
ordinances
Yeah.
different.
Well, but there should be a determination made by the safety providers that they could get there, or there's a liability on the city if they can't get there.
Does that exist when you build
Right.
a house?
I would
Or
assume you would
any
have to.
structure on your property?
I would
Well,
assume.
then why would we have to add it as a?
Because this
A second
isn't
condition.
that.
It's a place to live, though.
Oh, I know, but it's putting a home somewhere where it wouldn't be allowed to go. Except for the fact that we're making it, that it can be. So I don't know. Councilor
Councilor
Jordan, you
Jordan,
want to weigh in on this?
What do you think?
Well, a couple of points. One is if you build a house, fire department has to also approve the whole thing about fire certificates and all of that. So that is current law. So if you add a new structure that people are going to be living in and cooking in and all of the requirements of this, it would seem like you would have to have, you would want to have fire department approval to make sure that it's safe, and that there's appropriate smoke detectors and all the other things that go with that.
So I guess the question is, would we have to put it in here for it to be required, or would it already be required?
Because it's a
I don't think it's already required, because currently this is something that's all totally new. You know, I would think you would want to make sure you have put it there. And if the worst comes to worst is if it was already required, it's duplicative. But
But if it's not, then yeah.
But if it's not, then you would be effectively exempting people from fire code, and you don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
I guess I would just say that if it's not, then that's an issue already, right, from us with regards to our codes. But I agree with you if it's not. But if it is, I guess an extra.
It can't hurt to add it, but yeah.
It's just I feel like it ends up adding a lot of people in the pot that have already been in the pot, and it's an extra layer and processes that it doesn't hurt, but at the end of the day, for the person that's trying to get things done, becomes more of a nuisance. But I hear you. I hear it.
Well, the only thing I would say, Counselor, is that if you have a house that's been there for 50 years and there's no ADU on it, then whatever's been inspected in the past never considered that. This new structure is what they're not, is what they're going to actually be inspecting.
Right. So what you're suggesting is that they would have to inspect the other house too as well, then, right?
No, not necessarily, because we don't require currently ongoing fire inspections of regular people's homes.
But
This would only be for the new place.
Okay, so
Right.
I'm hearing it, and I'll vote in agreement with everyone if they agree with it. But like, I guess for me is again, like, if we're building, like, if I want to add an ADU to my house, in the process, does the fire department come and look at my map, my planning, and all the stuff? Do they inspect it
Anyway.
after? Do they do that already? And if they do that already, then there might not be no reason to add this into it. But if they don't do that already, I agree with you 110%. But since we don't know that at hand right now, then I guess we could vote for it.
Well, let's hang on
you and I
a,
are, I agree with you. You and I are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
so let's hang on a second, and maybe Attorney Bissonnette, who is with us on Zoom, I don't know if you would know this, but if you happen to know it, it would help.
Good evening again. The state fire code would require an inspection prior to certificate of occupancy being issued for a separate ADU. But again, as Councilor GIVNER points out, there's never any harm in including it so everybody's on the same page. But our building department would likely require that anyone seeking such a permit would also have to go to the fire department.
Okay. Thank you. So,
The other point, Madam Chairman, I would interject would be, in a couple of the other communities that have recently adopted this, over the last 2 to 3 years, they haven't seen more 3 or 4 of these applications come through. So while it's growing, and it's growing in popularity statewide, it doesn't seem like there would be an enormous avalanche of work for the fire department or building, at least at the outset.
okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So members of the committee, if we were to put any ADU shall be cited in such a way as to provide adequate access for emergency personnel and signed off by the fire department for,
Yeah, for a fire plant. What do we call it in the marijuana ordinance language?
Well, that they be inspected for fire safety, the structure, you know,
Access.
is it of materials? Is the cooking in such a way as it's safe?
well, this is talking about the siting as to provide adequate access. That's what the particular focus of number 4 is,
I kind of feel like it's already
rewriting the code.
Yeah, I feel like it's redundant, but hey, I'll vote for it if everyone wants. You know what I mean? Just in case,
Provide
I'll vote for it.
access
But
for
I feel like
personnel.
before the structure's built or after it's built, that there's already a process for that. But hey, if we want to do that just in case as a second layer, I'm okay with it.
Well, I don't really want to complicate this. I'm sharing the feedback that I got. And so if we just put any ADU shall be cited in such a way as to provide adequate access for emergency personnel with Holyoke Fire Department sign off. For accessibility. Yeah.
But Madam Chair, could we make it, and I don't know, and I'm just saying this as an idea. If not, then it's whatever. It could just fall on deaf ears. Could we make it so that if they already gotten approval sometime throughout the process, that they could use that form as approval? You get what I'm saying? So if they end up getting a permit because they had to go through an inspection, and then when they come and they have to show it again, instead of having to go back to the fire department again, they show the paperwork that they had already gotten approved with.
Right. So how about if we just say, shall be cited in such a way as to provide adequate access for emergency personnel, including a sign off from HFD, indicating access or approving, or what would it be? Kevin, can you help us with some words here?
Can I just say including Holyoke Fire Department sign off?
Yeah. Including Holyoke Fire Department sign off. Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Approval.
Keep it
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
Sign off approval. Got it. Okay, so then we're down to, and the only other feedback I got is that this being a new, rather experimental pilot thing, the maker of the original order would like to see the city council as the special permitting authority. Then if it becomes more routine as an accessory unit type of thing, then down the road, we could consider perhaps delegating it to another board. I would note that in our ordinances, the city council is always the permitting authority unless we affirmatively decide not to be.
I guess for me, Madam Chair, is do we have the capacity? Right now I know if it's one, it's just one, but if we end up getting 6 to 7 of them or something like that, would we have the capacity as?
Well, if Attorney Bissonnette had said there's been 50 of these sought in the last year in Western Mass, I'd be like, nah, we can't do it. But he's saying that the demand has been small. And so I think because it is new and because it's going to have a unique effect in neighborhoods, I think in particular the counselors in the wards downtown would want to be involved. I mean, that's just
Madam
me.
Chair?
I mean, Counselor Jourdain.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of the city council approval, at least for now, see how this goes. First of all, if it is controversial, if we get one, the citizens should have a right to have, their elected officials to have redress to us, to have a hearing, to say yes or no, and we're held, the 13 of us are held accountable for our votes. And, they're like, hey, if a neighborhood says, this just doesn't work, or this isn't reasonable, or people aren't working with us, as opposed to the planning board, which are nice people, but, they are not directly elected by the public and not directly accountable to the public. So, I think, especially where we don't know where this is going, and to me, it's all of the common sense, in my opinion, would definitely err on the side of caution that, we keep this city council, see how these go. If it turns out that, these are very routine and there's plenty of safeguards in place and neighbors feel comfortable with them, it's just like a lot of the other special permits that we do. It's that case that the people are like, oh man, boy, are we so glad. I've had that, I don't know how many times over the years where, thank God, we were able to have the city council stop something or to okay something, and they were able to have that feedback. They really feel like they have their voice heard, especially their ward counselor and and the at-large ones that they represent. So, yeah, that's definitely where I would come down on something experimental like this in particular.
So, Counselor Rivera.
Just real quick, I guess and I hear the point about it being new and everything. I guess though, like a lot of the legwork has to be done, and us as a council, we don't necessarily do a lot of that. Like the planning board would. I mean, first of all, I guess the question is, if it was delegated to the planning board, because it's a special permit, doesn't it still have to come through us as a vote?
No.
What do you mean? No, I thought you just said that everything has to come through us through vote.
In our ordinances, we are the permitting authority for a special permit.
Right.
But if we give that authority to another body, then it does not come to us.
Then it does not come back to us?
Correct.
And they would be able to go through the processes?
Correct. And they do on a number of things that don't come to us. I mean, there's many things that the planning board does that we don't see. But
I hear that too, but I guess just for me, and I'm not decided either way, it's just when it comes to doing the research and all the homework, I'm not gonna lie, when the planning board comes forward and they do their presentation, they do a lot of work before they come to us. And when it comes to us, a lot of the work that comes to us, we don't necessarily have the time to do a lot of this work because we're focusing on so many different issues that we have going on.
well, and so here's the thing. It is the planning staff that are doing the work.
Okay.
It's the employees of the city that are doing the research, putting the language together, and they're presenting it to their board in the way that they present it to us for our marijuana special permits. So that work would continue, and they do have the staffing over there in the planning department to do that. So it's just a matter if they're doing it and giving it to that board, or they're doing it and giving it to us. So I'm on the side initially because it is a new thing that is not well known or well utilized in the state yet, that we would keep it with the council at first, with the consideration that down the road we might, turn it over. But if committee's willing, what I'd like to do is move this out, saying issued by city council, adding, including a sign-off approval by the Holyoke Fire Department to item 4, and send it over to legal and ask them to put it in legal form and give it back to us, and then we'll all get another bite at the apple. How's that?
That works.
All right.
Okay,
Counselor
I'll
Jordan-
make a motion to do that, Madam Chair.
All right, is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Counselor Givner?
Aye.
Yes.
Counselor Maldonado Velez?
Yes.
Counselor Bacon, yes. Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion passes 5-0. And Attorney Bissonnette,
Yes,
if you have that January 11th document, you're with us for the 2 changes that we've made to it that we would be then seeking legal form for?
yes, I have them both.
So we're all good?
I believe so.
And then would it be fair for us to be able to take it up at the end of February? Would that be enough time?
Certainly. Is that the February 28th meeting?
Yes.
Great.
All right.
We'll do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you very much for your help and information tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't think we need a roll call, do we?
Aye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Bye-bye.